Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. This is the December 4th Brevard County Local Coordinating Board for the Transportation Disadvantaged. We're in the Space Coast Room, Building C, second floor, Viera Government Center. We'll have the introduction of members. If we could start over there at the far corner with Mr. Colon.
Good morning, Carlos Colon, FDOT.
Jennifer Sharafs, Vocational Rehabilitation.
Camille Tate, Disabled Representative.
Felicia Wilson, alternate.
Good morning, Jeanette Estes, Esquire, Regional Operations Manager for the State of Florida Agency for Persons with Disabilities.
Andrea Young, Chair, and City of West Melbourne.
Arlene Nolte, alternate elderly.
Miriam Moore, Citizen Advocate.
Anna Mae Smith, persons over 60, representative.
Thank you, and welcome to all the new people who are here for their first meeting. Thank you very much. And we'll start off with the election of a vice chair. Are there any motions, nominations for a vice chair? Who's our current vice chair? Is that
Your current vice chair is being replaced, Madam Chair,
it has been replaced? And that
with the voting of... Good morning, everyone. With the voting of the new board, the previous chair was replaced. So the current, you have to nominate a brand-new current vice chair at this point.
Okay, all right, thank you. Can we have a nomination for a vice chair? You can self-nominate if you would like to be vice chair. Don't wait for someone else to nominate you. Someone may not know your name, so go ahead and feel free to self-nominate. Anyone? I need the Jeopardy music. Okay, we have to have a vice chair because just in case, if no one's promised tomorrow, in case I am not here, we need to have a vice chair. How about someone who's been here for a while?
I can nominate myself.
Yes, Camille Tate. Yes, we have a nomination for Camille Tate. All right. We have a motion and I need a motion to accept. Oh, all right, so let's all vote on the nomination for the new chair. All those in favor of Camille Tate being the new vice chair, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion carries. May I have a motion to accept the new vice chair, Camille Tate?
I move so.
Thank you very much. And may I have a second on the motion? Second, Miriam. Motion, Jeanette Estes, and second, Miriam Moore. All those in favor of accepting the new vice chair signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Congratulations, Ms. Tate. You are the new vice chair. Thank you. All right. May I get a motion and a second for approval of the meeting minutes for August 14th, 2023 for the regular board meeting?
I have a comment.
Yes, Ms.
On page 17, there is a word that needs to be changed.
Can you narrow that down for us a little bit?
It's at the top under member reports. It says Camille Tate, the National Organization of the Blind. The word organization should be federation.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. So noted. Did you want to make the motion to accept it with the, with that change? To accept
it how?
I need approval of the minutes. So would you like to make the motion to approve the minutes with that change?
Yes, I make them, I'm not able to vote.
Oh,
I'll make a motion
That's
to
correct.
accept the
I'm
minutes
sorry.
as corrected.
Thank you, Camille. Thank you, Ms. Tate. All right, so we have a motion to accept to approve the minutes. May I have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you, Mr. Colon, thank you. All those in favor of accepting the minutes, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Thank you, motion carries. Reports, all right, we're going to turn this over to Terry Jordan.
Good morning again, everyone. Madam Chair, I'm not sure if you would like to do this, as we didn't recognize the members in the audience at this point. There are many members that may be alternates that unfortunately get the opportunity, if you'd like to do so.
That's a great idea. Thank you very much, Terry.
You're welcome.
All right, so we can start in the corner. We'll start with Nick in the back. If you'd like to stand and introduce yourself.
Hello, Nick Left with HDR. I'm supporting the Space Coast Area Transit and a TPO with a long-range plan and transit development plan. Please see a presentation.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Joy Bartlett. I'm with Career Source Brevard, representing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jennifer Stanger with Special Gatherings.
Thank you.
I'm Lori Hamilton with Volunteers in Motion.
Thank you.
Oh,
Go ahead, Yvonne.
Space Coast Area Transit.
Thank you, Yvonne. Yes, sir.
Tony Laurenti with Angels Bridging Gaps Autistic Support Group.
Thank you.
Ron Shepard from Space Coast Area Transit. Don McCarthy, Space Coast Area Transit.
Thank you.
Ken Hart, Space Coast Area Transit.
Thank you, Ken.
Jim Sheriff, Space Coast Area Transit.
Thank you.
I'm Diane Dixon. I'm the new alternate on board, and I'm with the Agency for Life Transformation.
Thank you and welcome.
Lance Parker, Space Coast Area Transit.
I'm in Space Coast Area Transit.
Amy Robinson, I'm with Health First Homes Regional Medical Center and hospital representation.
Mandy, there's a spot for you up here. Please come up.
Yes, we have a name tent for you. She has a name tent for you.
Yes, sir.
Christopher Gonzalo with Brevard Family Partnership.
Thank you very much. And Terry?
Karen Fetter, Space Coast Area Transit.
I could not see you behind the podium. Thank you very, very much. All right, we have everyone introduced? Oh, I'm sorry, Peggy.
I'm Peggy Campbell, runs the line. I am just, I write Space Coast Disabled Transit.
Thank you. I cannot see anyone else behind there.
Thank you, Claire, Madam. Good morning, everyone. My name is Terry Jordan, and I'm the Director for Space Coast Area Transit. So I'll be presenting the Director's Report. This morning, typically we give, and for the new members of the board, we typically give information regarding how Space Coast Transit's recent operations have been performing since the last board meeting. So I'll just give some highlights of our services. Our fixed route service is the service that transports our passengers, usually with the larger buses that you see going up and down the road. There was a 5.96% increase over the previous fiscal year. We were looking to do a little bit better than that, but we ended up with about 5.9, which is about 1.6 million riders for the year, FY23 year. The ridership continues to rebound, and the most recent ridership stats give us 5,000 riders over the previous month. So between October and September, there's been a continued growth of additional 5,000 riders. Our demand response service, which is what primarily pertains to this group today, shows a steadily increase as well. Previous year's average was about 6,000 passengers per month. Over the last two reported months, we've seen an increase of over 7,000 and 7,500 riders on our demand response riders. So we are seeing a current and continuous rebound in our demand response riders as well. You may hear about this later on, but Debbie Flynn and the TPO staff conducted our annual CTC evaluation that took place back in November. Debbie came for an on-site visit, which did a visual inspection of our vehicles, our records, and also did a ride-along trip to survey our passengers. Currently, the survey and the responses, we expect the evaluation to be presented to Space Coast Area Transit in January and then come back to this board right around possibly February of next 2024. Membership. As you came across today, there are some newly elected members to the board. In our next meeting, there once again will be 3 members transitioning out of their roles, and so we will have additional 3 members, and those representatives will be for the persons over 60, as Ms. Nolte mentioned, and our primary and alternate representatives for disabled representatives. So those that are serving the board may be voted again, but those members that their terms are going to expire prior to the February meeting. Currently, the applications are posted on the the TPO's website, along with Space Coast Area Transit's websites. The application period runs through December 14th. In January 24, the nominating committee will nominate new members to the board from the applications received. And on the February 8th meeting, they will go to the Space Coast TPO board for acceptance of those members and then presented at our next LCB in February of 2024. Last couple of items for myself. Thanks to our continued partnership with our member Carlos Colon and the FDOT, we are awaiting final approval numbers for our 5310 application, which was submitted, and it pertains once again primarily to this group because it will allow us to purchase new vehicles which support the transportation disadvantage and demand response ridership that we provide. So smaller vehicles to pick up our individuals that utilize this service. And one thing, I'm not going to steal any thunder from Nick, but he will provide information on the TDP, the Transportation Development Plan activities will be presented by HDR later in this presentation, so you get to hear more about that momentarily. And that is my report. If there are any questions from anyone in the audience or members of the board, I'd be glad to try to answer right now.
Any questions for Terry before I ask my question? This,
I'm sorry.
Yes, Mr.
Not a
Colon.
question, just a comment. Can you please include me on the next CTC?
can you speak into the microphone, please?
Mr. Colon asked that we would include him on the next CTC evaluation, so I'm sure that's noted by Ms. Flynn.
Thank you. Does anyone else have a question for
Thank you.
Terry? I have a question.
Yeah.
So this influx of new passengers, now I know that you said that the TPO wrote and they did a survey, so maybe in January this question will be answered. Do you happen to have any inclination of where all these new passengers are coming from and where are they going? Are they going to jobs? Is it doctor's appointments? What has caused this?
So I'll say, I'm going to answer twofold. Well, I'm going to answer one part of it, and Carmen, when she comes up, will answer the second part for us as well. So on the fixed route ridership, we've been steadily working towards a rebound from since pre-pandemic numbers, and we have seen that growth come back and continue to grow. Those passengers are typically going to places like jobs, some medical trips, but mostly jobs and activities such. Carmen will focus on the TD demand ridership and our demand response ridership momentarily, so she'll share information on where those passengers are taking trips to and that continued growth in our TD riders.
All right, thank you.
I know I didn't answer directly, but you'll hear. I didn't want to have her repeat what I was saying.
All right, thank you.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
very much.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay,
And our next is right behind me is Carmen with the next set of reports.
thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Let me just go to the numbers first because he was just on the numbers. Okay. In August, well, May, the ridership is coming actually from school-aged, for training centers, for Rod Achievement Center, Easter Seals, because they aged out of school. That's one of our influx. And dialysis has grown, and there's a lot of things. Work trips has grown profusely on the paratransit side of it. And now a lot of people are now going out for recreation. So we're seeing it everywhere. We're seeing it in the medical, but mostly for employment, mostly for the training centers and recreational. A lot of people are just starting to come back out. Because I've been getting a lot of applications of previous riders that hasn't rose since the pandemic. So they're coming back out, I guess, the fear
Okay.
of COVID, but
How about tourism? Anything for
that's mostly on the fixed route side.
fixed route? Okay.
And the snowbirds are coming back out.
Oh, that's true. Okay.
They're coming back into town and stuff like that. So we're seeing a lot of old riders, but also a lot of new riders on the paratransit side. Also, we've been out in the community a lot too. Since the last LCB was in August? Yes. And from the last LCB meeting, we actually did a meeting with Partner in Education, which Terry did that. It's when we go in with the school board and see if they let us come out and teach the kids how to ride our fixed route not just for school, but for recreational, to the beach and stuff like that. Actually, tomorrow I'll be at Heritage High School because of that meeting that he had. We're going out and we're going to teach the middle school? Junior and high school? Which one?
High school.
High school. The other side, high school. I'm talking about juniors and seniors, right? We're going to take them on a bus ride, teach them how to ride the bus, get on the bus. We're going to do the route, stop, teach them how to get transfers for them to be more independent. I also spoke in Grace Methodist Church to the seniors in Merritt Island and taught them. These seniors didn't even know paratransit existed. So I gave them a presentation, and now they know, and they're going to spread it to the church. And Mobility Week was a very busy week. We went out in the community, started giving gift bags, just thanking the customers for riding. And they're very happy because we gave them a gift bag with water bottles in it, chips, squeezy balls, lights for their bikes, and then they were measuring for helmets for the customers that had bikes, and they loved that. So we were very busy since the last LCB meeting. So we did a lot in the community. So maybe that's why we're getting a lot of new people. By just seeing us out there.
It's wonderful. Thank you.
Any questions?
All right. Don't see anyone raising their hand. No, but no, the board hadn't hand. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much for your report. Performance report card.
Did both ones together, yes.
All right, good morning. I don't really have anything new to report that isn't already on the report that you have, except for the Boomer Bash was really a great event for Volunteers in Motion, and I was able to already have 2 prospect volunteers that I'll be working with in the next week or 2 to, sign them up, so I'm pretty excited about that. Do you have any questions?
If you don't mind, for the benefit of the new members, do you mind explaining what the volunteer motion is?
Sure. Volunteers in Motion is a additional service that Space Coast Area Transit offers. And basically, it's a program that we rely heavily on volunteers to provide the driving, and they utilize county-owned and maintained vehicles. Our mission is providing transportation for individuals that are unable to use Space Coast Area Transit services, like the paratransit service, and they should be living at home independently and lack support from individuals like family members that live in Brevard. So we help them get to medical appointments and grocery shopping. And no charge to them because we are utilizing volunteers to provide their time and support.
I see that here on page 27. If you'd like to turn to page 27, this is the Volunteers in Motion's Program Statistics Calendar Year 2022. And when I look at the quarter 1, quarter 2, and quarter 3, and I see the volunteer hours that are put into this, that is tremendous.
Yes, ma'am, it is.
And these are all volunteer people using their own vehicles?
No, our county
They're
vehicles.
using your county vehicles, but they're
Yes.
using their time. So
Yes,
they drive their
exactly.
vehicle out there, park their vehicle, and then drive a county vehicle and pick up people and take them, and then wait for them, and then take them back home.
Yes, yes. They are covered under the county insurance plan, and we do offer workers' compensation while they are volunteering.
Okay, and then we do something for them at the end of the year? There's a party, there's a thank
Well,
you?
since 2019, we have we have not gotten back up as far as recognizing them on an annual basis, but this program has been up and running since 1996, so we're getting close to 30 years. So I'm, hoping that we are going to have a big, celebration for that I'm starting to work on.
Okay, so that'd be a budget item we should see coming up.
Well, I'm still working on it. Usually, Space Coast Area Transit does a great job as far as, in the past, we actually had it part of the Space Coast Area Transit award ceremony. And then a few years ago, we kind of, a little bit past 2019, but then we decided to kind of separate it to kind of give the volunteers kind of their own special time instead of having it be part of such a large event with Space Coast Area Transit. But we usually pick someplace really nice, have lunch, and I usually try to get a speaker to talk about volunteerism and kind of make it special.
All right, thank you.
You're
Madam
welcome.
Chair, may I ask a question?
Yes, please.
That is a wonderful program you have. I was just curious, do the volunteers have to go through a level 2 background screening?
They do. There is a background screening.
Wonderful, thank you.
Absolutely. And drug screening, and their driver's license is kind of lumped in with the bus drivers, so they're checked on a regular basis also. All right, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? All right, thank you very much. It was a wonderful report. Thank you. All right, next item. Action items. Terry. Terry
Hello
Jordan.
again, everyone. At this time, earlier, requesting the approval of the annual bylaws. Pursuant to the TD Commission, Space Coast Area Transit, as the CTC is required to have the TDLCB approve the annual bylaws, and staff is requesting if there are any recommendations to the changes or changes to the bylaws that were distributed in your packet. We will entertain those at this time. If not, we are requesting approval of the proposed bylaws.
Anyone have any comments or additions they'd like to add to the bylaws? I did have a chance to go through them. I did not want to add anything. I think I had a question, if I can just find them. So thank you very much for providing the packet early.
You're welcome.
All right,
And
apparently
they
not.
begin on page 31 for anyone reviewing your packet right now.
Thank you.
You're
Page
welcome.
numbers are very helpful. Thank you. Yes, on page 31, actually, I know we've talked about before, appoint a grievance subcommittee to process and investigate complaints. We haven't had a meeting on that yet because we've had no reason to have a meeting on that. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
And thank you for bringing that out as well. It's something I intend on talking about a little bit later, but I'm glad to mention it now. With the change in membership, anticipate at the February meeting, we'll be requesting appointments, 2 new appointments for the grievance committee, well, maybe 1, but you have 2 members that could potentially be changing. So we'll be looking at requesting new members appointed to the grievance committee. But as you stated, there have been no grievances brought to Space Coast Area Transit, so there has been no need for the committee to meet. And we're very thankful that the service we provide has allowed us not to have to worry about that.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Terry.
Yep.
And on page 29, a local representative of the Florida Department of Children and Families, I see that we do have that now. That space has been filled. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, my 29 is different. So
Oh,
are you talking about the membership roster?
yes, the board, yes. It's at 1.0 under 1C and D. D is local representative of the public education community.
Madam Chair, I have to look and make sure before I answer. I don't want to answer
Okay, all
prematurely.
right. All right. All right, so may I get a motion to approve the bylaws?
Motion.
I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
Motion, Carlos Colon.
Motion by Mr. Colon. May I get a second to the motion?
Second.
Second by Ms. Tate. All those in favor of approving the bylaws signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Bylaws are approved.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And you want to go right on to the annual operating report?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Since we have a few new members, I'm going to talk briefly about what the annual operating report actually is. It reports to the TD Commission, and it provides related information on the TD services for Brevard County. It's a requirement under Florida Statute 427, and it actually provides an overview of the program and a summary of performance trends that are statewide. All the information is collected and compiled by the county systems, and the annual operating report is based on the state's fiscal year, which is something to remember. It is not the county's fiscal year, it's the state's fiscal year. The state uses the data collected to substantiate the need to seek additional funds. And as of 2021, the AOR is not used as part of a formula for grant allocations. And you'll see in the next couple of slides that contains both operational and financial data. Once again, it's based on the state's fiscal year. It does not include all transportation that's provided by Space Coast Area Transit. Some of the data that is used is collected from samples. The AOR is submitted to the TD Commission, and they can send it back and ask for clarification and changes. The three transportation operators that are reported on the AOR are Space Coast Area Transit, Enterprise, and the School Board of Brevard County. Just some of the passenger trip information. Most of the trips are in fixed route, followed by paratransit, Volunteers in Motion, and then the school board summer trips, and then Enterprise, for a total of 542,000 trips. These are the trips by the funding sources. So the highest would be the FDOT. The highest would be our local government, which would be the fixed route, followed by FDOT. Then we have the non-local, which would be Eastern Florida, Vera. Who are some of the others? Go back. Local non-government. So Eastern Florida is probably the biggest one of those. I believe the Federation of the Blind falls in there, City of Melbourne. Vocational rehab and the TD Commission. So we talked about this earlier. The number one reason for the trip is employment, followed by education, and then medical, and then life-sustaining other, and then nutritional would be the number 5.
So life-sustaining and medical, are they not connected? Life-sustaining?
No.
Do you want to clarify?
Yeah, what are some of the...
Life-sustaining is food shopping, hairdresser.
I thought food would be under nutritional. No.
No. Life-sustaining is someone to do, what they want to go out and do stuff, not just medical.
Okay.
So, trust me, I thought life-sustaining was dialysis and all that stuff, but no, they corrected me years ago.
The quality of life, so.
Yes,
Right.
quality of life.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
So nutritional would be actually grocery store.
Nutrition will be more like the, so I'm sorry, for the benefit of the board, seniors at lunch are where we provide the trip to individuals that need to go to a nutrition site. And those we actually are in the process of embarking on a new contract, so those numbers will go up pretty soon.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Next slide. Okay, no, back one. There you go. Some of the other information that's reported on the AOR is unduplicated head count, 10,000. Carmen, you might have to explain that. unmet trip requests, passenger no-shows, complaints, and accommodations are also reported. Vehicle information, the total vehicle miles are a little over 1 million. We had 14 road calls, 2 chargeable accidents, 128 total vehicles, and 95 wheelchair accessible vehicles. We have 24 full part-time drivers and 115 volunteer drivers. There you go. Total revenues are a little over 6 million, almost 6.5. Expenses are 5.7. The last slide actually compares last year with current year. Next slide. So the total trips compared, 2023 comparing it to the previous year is about 1.5% down, decrease. Total vehicle miles is up a little over 1%. We had one less accident. And the total expenses when compared current year to the previous year is a little less than 10%, and that is a little more than 10%, and that is due to the cost of living increase and some overtime expenses in the 22-23. And then total revenues are decreased a little less than 10%, and that is reflective of the CARES Act grant in 2021-22 that was used completely and closed out. And the ARP grant was also closed. And that's it. Any questions?
Madam Chair, may I ask a
Yes,
question?
yes, Ms. Estes?
Up here. Sorry, get into this microphone. So I just had a question because I believe Mr. Jordan said there was a 5.9%, and he'll correct me if I was wrong on that number, increase on the fixed rate route trips. And so I was just looking at these figures and hearing the other reports that trips have actually gone up. So it looks, these two charts actually show that it's actually gone down, but yet the miles. So if we look at the figures, 21, 22, 23, we've gone down, but yet the miles have gone up. And so we've gone down in accidents, that's fantastic. We don't want accidents. But so I'm just wondering do you see, and I'm not an accountant, but just the basic math, is it a longer length of trip, or just, and then based on the percentage that you said that the increase went up in the fixed rate route? I was just curious about that.
It's also a different report year.
Okay.
But I'll answer this. So the second part of your
Do you understand what I'm trying to ask?
and
Okay.
I'll share it.
Thank you.
You're looking at a combination of overall services. In my report, when I mentioned the fixed route, pertains solely to fixed route. So there's the opportunity for paratransit type services for the miles to increase if the passengers are traveling longer distances or are going for additional locations.
Okay.
But it's not reflected in my initial number because that's just the fixed route services,
Okay.
which is the person that walks out to the bus stop, hops on a
Right.
bus.
Okay.
That's a completely different report. And what Karen also stated is the fiscal year reporting period is slightly different, so it's hard to combine the two. So this one that Karen's reporting on primarily is reflective of our demand response type ridership, not our fixed route. But some of our TD riders do ride fixed route. I just want to make sure that's clear to the group as well.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments before I ask my question? Okay. A few slides back, you show no-shows as being over 7,200 no-shows. A few slides back.
You want to talk about no-shows?
No-shows is mostly contract and contract route, because we run it like a school bus.
I can't hear you. Can you speak into the mic?
80% of the no-shows are the contract routes, which is the training centers, because we run those routes as like a school bus. So we have, we get to the site when we're picking up 10, 3 get on, so the other ones are no-show. But we still got to go there anyway. And some of them are dialysis clients that they got sick the night before, and they end up in the hospital, but we have them still on the agenda because they're subscription trips. So those are 80% of our no-shows, when we get to the location and they're not there.
All right, so the few that aren't, how many times, this is for paratrans, well, you said some of the contracts, others are paratransport. So that's pretty important, because you have people that absolutely need that ride. And if there's someplace else and the person doesn't show up, if it's not an instance that you just said, how many no-shows are they allowed before it's kind of doubtful whether or not?
It's a, yeah.
All right. So, and the reason why I asked this is because it's more, so there's 2 answers to that question. There's 3 consecutive no-shows before we send out a letter and start the process. However, you made a perfect statement. Many of these individuals are dependent of this service for life-sustaining functions, as Carmen mentioned, individuals that are going to adult daycare, so places that they have to go to on a regular basis. And the reason why I said what I said is because we typically don't kick a person off the service. That's probably the best way to put it. We work with them as much as possible. We try to ensure that the individual understands there's a need to contact us if they're not going. But as Carmen mentioned once again, sometimes things happen that we're not the priority on their thoughts. They are going to the hospital. Someone like the development challenge individual's having a bad morning. The parent is trying to control that situation, not necessarily think about contacting us to say that their child or their individual is not going. So we understand all these things, and we try to work with those individuals as much as possible.
And we do follow up with phone calls.
Yeah, I can't think of a time that I'm aware of, and that's why I turned to Carmen, that we have actually terminated transportation for anyone for no-show purposes. We work with them as much as possible, understanding the need for our service is detrimental to not only quality of life, but life-sustaining as well.
Well, that's commendable. I'm looking at the overall miles, and if 7,200 of those are wasted trips because it was a no-show, it's kind of, I know it's difficult to make ends meet.
Yes. So I'll say, this board has heard me mention this before, but we're now really embarking on the process of getting software in place where we're doing the 24-hour call in advance and the call prior to showing up. So we're working to get that software in place, and we're very hopeful it will significantly decrease the amount of no-shows, because kind of like your typical doctor's, vision, dentist appointments, you'll get that contact prior to coming and ask, are you still coming? Do you still need the trip? Do you still need the ride? We're looking to make that happen in our services as well, so the individual can cancel at that point. So we're given the opportunity in advance to cancel without them having to call us day of. And we're hopeful that that will help significantly. Expecting that it will help significantly.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you very much.
So before we move on, we are needing the board to
Need
approve.
a motion and a second to approve the operating report. Can I get a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to accept the report.
Okay, thank you. Motion, Camille Tate. May I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Cologne. All those in favor of approving the annual operating report signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you very much. Motion carries. All right, we have the transfer of paratransit riders to fixed route report next. Ken?
Good morning. At our last board meeting, there was a discussion about transferring passengers from...
Can you speak into the microphone?
At our last board meeting, there was a discussion about transferring passengers from paratransit to the fixed route. Under Florida Statute 427, which is the guiding legislation for the Transportation Disadvantaged Program, one of the requirements outlined is that on an annual basis, the local coordinating board must approve in coordination with the community transportation coordinator a percentage of passengers that will be transferred from the fixed route to the from the paratransit to the fixed route. This is done One, for a cost-saving measure, because paratransit trips are the most expensive trips in the system, as well as to ensure that the people who are utilizing it are really TD dependent. And when we've analyzed the information on our riders, and we're still continuously doing that, we feel that we can strongly remove 1% of the riders on an annual basis from the paratransit to the fixed route. This will not impact people that really need the paratransit program. It's people that may have at one point needed or no longer need it, but they're still using it because they haven't told us that they're able to navigate the fixed route. And this will not adversely impact any of the riders as we go through and pull those individuals out. We've already identified some potential riders that can be moved to the fixed route, and so we're asking permission for this year to establish that goal at 1% of our paratransit riders.
So that's a goal. It's not something you're just going to do. You're going to remove 1% of them. If they haven't told you by now that they can navigate the fixed route, how are you identifying?
By actually looking at the data, their application information, making contact with them to see if they're able to utilize the fixed route, as well as we already identified some potential riders that go to certain facilities that are able to utilize the fixed route. And also training will be made available in those instances where travel training is needed to help them as well.
Okay, and about how many do you think this 1% is going to be?
It would be probably in the first year less than 15 people.
Really? Okay. All right, thank you very much. You need a motion and a second on this?
Yes, please.
Okay, all right. I need a motion and a second, please, for the transfer of paratransit riders to fixed route. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Mr. Colon. May I get a second, please? Ms. Felicia, are you telling me, or are you seconding? All right, thank you very much. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Thank you very much, Ken. All right, next we're going...
Excuse me, could I ask that the speakers give their name for those of us who may not recognize everybody?
Yes, absolutely. I think that's a good idea. Thank you. Next will be the approval of the 2024 meeting date calendar. Have you all looked at the meeting date calendar? I've looked at these and I've put them in my phone already. I did want to mention that the February 12th meeting, it says it's in the Florida room, and all the others are in the Space Coast room. We're in the Space Coast room now. Do we mean the Space Coast room as opposed to the Florida room? On page 45? Shall I assume that's a typo?
No, since the board has grown, we were thinking of
The Florida room upstairs on the third floor. Okay, so we need to make that correction. So the February meeting will be in the Florida room on the third floor, not the second floor. So I want to, because we have new people, I want to make sure they go to the right place. And then all of the others, May, August, and November meetings will be here, right here where we are now. Okay, anyone have any issues with accepting the meeting dates as they're written?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Ms.
May
Estes.
I make note that November 11th is Veterans Day?
Yes,
and that
realize that.
I can just tell you that state and federal offices are closed, so the state of Florida will not be in attendance at that meeting on that day if you have it on Veterans Day.
Thank you. I'm not even sure this building will be open on Veterans Day.
Just wanted to make note for the
Thank you. And that's my next comment, is November 11th.
Yeah, and the compliant document that's on the website, I did update that. We moved it to November 18th.
Oh, it's moved, okay. I'm sorry, I'm just looking at my packet.
It's our oversight in correcting the...
Okay, so it's November 18th. All right, thank you. Same place, Space Coast Room, right here on November 18th. Can everyone please, if you're looking at your packet, make that change to November 18th? And in that case, can I get a motion and a second approving the 2024 meeting date calendar?
I so move.
Thank you, Ms. Estes. Motion and second?
Second.
Camille, was that you?
Yes.
Okay, and second, Ms. Tate. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Thank you, motion carries. This is the meeting dates as written. All right, thank you. Next item, presentations. Government in the Sunshine?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I believe we might have a bit of a housekeeping issue on the, not the last motion, but the one before that. I think the motion was made by an alternate. Is that correct?
Felicia made.
If you could just perhaps
Thank you.
revote on that, please.
Check, we had a motion, Felicia, she is an alternate, correct?
And the primary is here.
The previous?
primary is here, so the primary, they can't vote if the primary is here.
Yes, or make a motion. Yes, I'm sorry, I did not realize that. Okay, so we need to go back and do that item again. All right, you want to tell me which item that was, please, so I don't ruffle through all my papers? This was the approval of the annual operating report?
It was the,
It was the paratransit to fixed route.
Oh, the paratransit, okay, all right, thank you. Then in that case, may I have a motion, again, from someone who is not an alternate?
I'll
Any-
make the motion.
All right, thank you, Ms. Smith, thank you. We have a motion, Ms. Smith, and we have a second.
I'll second.
A second by Ms. Moore. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Those opposed? Thank you. Motion carries again. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Thank you.
So I'm going to speak this morning about the Government in the Sunshine law. Okay. So the Sunshine Law concept
Can you
is-
speak into the microphone?
All right. Oh, that's okay. All right. Let's see if I can do this. Where do I point? Gary. Let me see if I can do this. Sorry. The Government in the Sunshine is the concept of having open government proceedings in the state of Florida, and that the public has a right of access to governmental proceedings. And this board's meetings fall under the Sunshine Law. As an advisory board, your meetings also need to follow the requirements. And the Sunshine Law is very important in the state of Florida. It's part of the Constitution, and it's also in Florida statutes. There are three basic requirements to abiding by the Sunshine Law. The meetings must be open to the public, reasonable notice must be given, and minutes of the meetings must be taken. So what does it mean to have an open meeting? It applies to any gathering of at least two of you when you're going to be discussing any matter that may come before the board, something, either a discussion or an item that you will be voting on. And it does not matter the location. If you meet elsewhere and discuss something that comes before the board, that does need to be, follow the Sunshine Law. And just more on that, it covers all communication. So if two or more members engage in anything, written correspondence, emails, phone calls, social media, that's kind of a big one. You can't discuss things on social media that is going to come before this board. So all of that is subject to Sunshine Law requirements. And so what is reasonable notice that's required? It must be given notice to the public of the time and place and the agenda if it's available. If not, then the general subject matter. And the minutes of the meeting, it does not have to be a verbatim transcript. It can be a summary of the action items. And it has to be recorded and open to inspection within a reasonable time. There's no exact 30 days. It's just a reasonable amount of time. And this is another question that comes up often is, you know, if you're going to be out, you might know each other, be friends, can you socialize? Certainly. You just cannot, again, discuss matters that might come before this board. So it's one of those issues where you just kind of want to be careful about it and make sure you discuss the weather, something else, you know, personal matters, but not something that's going to come before the board. And staff is not the same as another member, so you can talk to us, any of us, about, you have questions. We just can't be a middleman in between another board member. And this is also very important to note, you can talk to your alternate. If you have questions about a vote or an item, you are free to talk to your alternate because there will never be a time where you both vote at the same time, so it's not considered two independent voters. So you can discuss that without having to have it noticed, and it's not subject to the Sunshine Law. So if you have another meeting, again, this happens a lot, if there's another public meeting that you happen to be at, that's fine. Again, it's just not discussing this board's business. So public records goes hand in hand with Sunshine Law meeting requirements. So what are public records? Public records, we have a very broad public records law in Florida. Public records is nearly anything. Again, you can see the list there, social media posts, emails, text conversations, anything that is made in connection with the business of this board. So it's not your personal text. It's if you make a text or an email or a phone call about a written record about the business of this board. And if a request comes in, it should be disclosed. If you need help with that, you can disclose it to staff. The Transit Department has a public records custodian. The county attorney's office is happy to help with that if you have any questions about that. And that's, I made it very fast. That's all. The dry legal is short. If anybody has any questions, I'm also always available. You can always call me or email me with any specific scenarios you might run into.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the overview of board member duties. Terry Jordan.
Okay, thanks again. I first want to just echo my appreciation for all that have volunteered to serve on the board. And though those are designated by their agencies to serve on the board, we understand that, you know, you take time out of your days, your busy schedules to come and sit with us typically for about an hour, so I really do appreciate that. My talk this morning is really going to be, I'm going to make it brief. I've got a presentation, but I'm not going to go through every slide. But the biggest things are the reason why you're here. So this is the TD, Transportation Disadvantage, usually considered and called the TD program. And this is for individuals who cannot utilize our fixed route services on a regular basis. The individuals that need to be taken to dialysis, doctors' treatments, things of that nature. I want to clarify one thing. The question came up earlier about nutrition. Grocery shopping does fall under nutrition. Thank you, Ken, for showing that definition. So it does fall under nutrition. So individuals taken to grocery shopping will fall under nutrition. Just want to make sure that was clarified. So the TD transportation is actually for those who are unable, because of income status, age, or disability, to transport themselves or to purchase transportation, and therefore they're dependent on others. That's why I mentioned earlier that some of our TD riders do use fixed route services, not just the demand response services that come to the door. The format, the governing format, is everything starts with the Florida Commission for Transportation Disadvantage, typically called CTD. it comes down to the designated plan agency. That's why the TPO staff are involved in the process. They have the oversight, so anything goes directly through the TPO. Then it falls down to the agency providing the service, which is considered and frequently called the CTC. And then Space Coast Area Transit functions in that role. And as you see, information flows between the local coordinating board and the CTC, which is Space Coast Area Transit in this case. So you have oversight specifically for reviewing documents, making recommendations, and giving advice on the services we provide. So as you see, the CTD is a independent state agency, and pretty much their goal is to ensure that services are provided for those who are transportation disadvantaged throughout the entire state. The designated planning official agency is the TPO in this case. And as I mentioned a moment ago, Space Coast Area Transit is the CTC, which is the Community Transportation Coordinator. And why that's important is because on a regular basis, this board determines if the transit system is performing up to the standards that we have identified, and you give recommendations or requests. I'll get into this in a moment, but you actually are given oversight just to make sure that the agency that's designated as the CTC is providing the services to the individuals requiring and requesting the service. So the role of this board. Pretty much your main goal as the local coordinating board is to represent your agency or the individuals that you most likely will come in contact. We have our over 60 represented individuals of age. We have disabled community, and then we have the blind community, and let me make sure, my son gets me on this all the time, the visually impaired, I say the right terms. So the communities that you represent, you are an advocate for those communities that you represent. So individuals that you may come in contact with at your agencies or in your day-to-day that fall under those categories, if you see that there is a need that we as the agency are not providing, it is not really your responsibility, but we request that you bring that to our attention so we can make sure we're providing the best services available to the community. Carmen came up not too long ago. She went out and did a presentation to a church. We were requested to make this presentation, and as she mentioned, many of the individuals that were at that talk didn't know we had the service, didn't know that we existed. So it is, once again, the goal of the representatives here to advocate for those individuals and let us know if you have an upcoming event that you would like our staff to come out and talk to those individuals. We do that very willingly and take every advantage we can to showcase our services, but to let individuals know of the services that are available to them. So some of the more I guess the tasks, more so to speak, are you review and approve the Transportation Service Disadvantage Plan. Ken Harley, who came out early, is usually responsible for coordinating that document. It's an annual document that comes to before this board. It's a pretty long document, I'll admit that. And it really, just to summarize it, it talks about the service we provide, how we provide that service, and then the ways that we need to continue to grow that service. And you take a look at that. It comes with an agreement that the CTC signs with the board chair in providing the service. So you pretty much are evaluating that to make sure that not only are we responsible in the role that we're servicing, but that we continue to do so over the year. Another thing that you're doing is you're evaluating the services. I mentioned earlier that the TPO staff, Debbie Flynn, has done the annual CTC assessment. Once that's completed, it comes before this board, and you take a look at everything that she has come across, if there are any concerns, if there are any recommendations, if there are any findings. She puts that in the report. And then you, as the board, review that and ensure that we don't have repeat findings in the following year, or if there are any recommendations that we do something different, this board has the authority to make those recommendations to ensure that we are continuing the service that we're providing. You assist in establishing eligibility guidelines for our clients. Most of this comes directly from from our agency at the state and also with our FDOT partners, but you're also a part of that process to make sure that we're providing, once again, to individuals that are eligible, that we put out an application for them, that you also get to take a look at the application that is being that is put out to the passengers for completion. So all those are areas that you actually have a responsibility and roles in to continue to ensure the services. And reviewing coordination strategies. So there are also other agencies that provide services throughout Brevard County. If there's any opportunity for us to coordinate, we bring that information to the board, and the board takes a look and sees that if there is the opportunity for savings or efficiencies gained, then you will have the opportunity to review and make comments on that as well. I know I'm going through this very quickly, but I'll pause right now if there are any questions. All right. So this, as you see, is the list of members, but it's also shown in your packets as well, the individuals and the specific areas that they represent. You asked about a healthcare representative. Madam Chair, we do have one that's listed on the board. Unfortunately, that individual's not here today, so that's why they didn't speak up. But yes, we do have a representative from that area as well now.
Okay.
So.
She's here. I'm here.
Oh, I apologize.
Sitting out there earlier.
No, they moved you up. I'm sorry, I didn't see it. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
My apologies. So, there's our rep.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Over the past several months, we've worked closely with the TPO staff to ensure that this board has a healthy representation of various members of our community. I'm very glad to see that there are numerous members in the audience as well, represented agencies as well that can also coordinate with us, share information with us, and once again, help us to provide the best service to those that they serve as well. So thank you as well. So, as I mentioned, the duties include adopting the bylaws, which you did earlier, review and adopt grievance procedures, which we're going to be looking at in February. We'll do the grievance procedures and then have a subcommittee appointed. The AOR, it's the annual operations report, which Karen did earlier. The expenditure report, I believe, came in the last meeting, so most of you didn't get to see that. And the TD service plan, which I mentioned a little while ago, and the CTC evaluation. And the last item on this list, which I saw was a lot of hesitancy this morning, appoint a vice chair. So, but thank you guys for all that you did this morning, and I look forward to the continued relationship and the new board members. If there are any questions, always feel free to reach out to myself. Yvonne Miles is my admin assistant, who actually sends out the documents. You can respond to any emails directly to Yvonne, and then I'll get that. And if there needs to be additional information shared from maybe any of our staff, we compile that information and send it back to you directly if there are any questions that are not asked in the meeting. So actually, I already talked about the TDSP and the CT evaluation. Like I said, I went through it very quickly in the interest of time, but once again, if anyone does have any questions that you would like to pose, I'll definitely be glad to answer them. One last thing. This may have been an area that I wanted to clarify as well. I'm glad I had the slide on this. So a member may not abstain from voting. However, it came up earlier regarding the alternates. If you're serving as an alternate and your primary representative is not here, then you have the ability to vote. If the primary person, as we had earlier, is in attendance, the alternate is unable to vote. So you're present, and you can, when it comes time for public comments or comments, by all means, able to do so, but alternate in the presence of the primary member cannot make a motion, nor can they vote. So But if here, you're not able to abstain from voting either, I want to make sure that was brought to your attention as well. And that is my presentation. This is just a repeat of things I've already said. So any questions?
Any questions for Terry? For Mr. Jordan regarding their duties? All right, thank you. That was an excellent presentation.
Thank you all. And we have one more presentation.
Yes, thank you. The next, we're going to hear from Nick Lepp, and he is the Transportation Disadvantaged Goals and Objectives Consultant.
Good morning.
Good morning.
One moment while I get this up. Okay. Good morning. My name is Nick Lepp. I'm with HDR. I'm actually leading the long-range plan and the transit development plan update. And this is kind of new, and I'm going to go back since a lot of new members here. I'll introduce what the long-range plan is and the transit development plan as we go forward. Sorry, I'm a little bit taller. So I'll introduce what these plans are and how they will actually impact the region over the next 5 to 10 to 20 years. So a long-range plan is the 20-year vision for the Space Coast TPO. All transportation projects that have federal or state funding need to be included in this long-range transportation plan. The current plan is being updated to the year 2050 as a horizon year. It requires extensive technical research. Comprehensive plans have to be consistent with the local governments. So this plan we work with all the local governments to make sure that we're all reading from the same page. And it's developed considering, conditions of demographics in the future, how we're going to grow. But one thing that's really important is the plan has to be fiscally constrained. So when you hear the term cost feasible in terms of the TPO and the plan in the future, that means we've assumed that there's enough revenue 20 years down the road to support those transportation projects that are needed 20 years down the road. That is the cost feasibility or that fiscal constraint component that is part of those long-range plans. And I'm saying this because we're putting these two plans together. This is one of the first that it's going to be happening. I'm not saying we're going to be adopting first because I think Pinellas is a little ahead of us, but we were the first ones to start establishing this as it was recommended from the state to try to put these two plans, the long-range plan, and then as I go forward, the transit development plan, kind of on that same horizon page. So we're talking from the same pages. We're talking about future budgets and funding for, say, capital improvements for not only roadway, but for transit purposes. So why is this important? So everything, like I said, if it's not in the long-range plan, it cannot receive that federal and state funding for those capital improvements. So this is how it kind of works throughout the TPO. You develop that long-range plan, and then as you hear every year that list of priority projects, and as those projects go into the Transportation Improvement Program. Once they're in the TIP, that's that 5-year program that the project is essentially funded. But what has to happen is that project needs to be in the long-range plan first, determine that is essentially it's cost feasible, there will be enough money to fund it. And then as it's prioritized and make sure that it meets those goals and objectives for both transit and roadway and all mobility, it moves forward into the TIP to receive that funding to improve. And all the projects in there start looking at all of the phases. So we're not just talking about funding a construction. This is looking at the planning and the operational analysis from the design, funding the right-of-way, all the way through construction. So that's why we're looking out in a 20-year horizon. Transportation projects and capital projects take about 20 years to be completed going through all of these phases. So we need to make sure to update this plan every 5 years and see where those priorities are and ensure those priorities and how they link to the goals and objectives, as I'm getting back to in a moment. So under the 2045 plan, there were these overarching emphasis areas looking at safety, multimodal options, linking transportation and land use, and sustainability, equity, and resilience. So underneath those, how do we form those long-range plan goals to support that? So here we have, skipped ahead too far, I'm sorry. Yeah, the safety one was missing. So under each goal, the long-range plan, we are going to confirm these goals with not only the board, but with the working groups to make sure that they are still in line with what was established in 2045. A lot of it has been. We're just starting to tweak some of the language, as you can see up here, to make sure it's supportive of the new transportation legislation, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. So Going through the goals, they're very similar as we're doing that Advanced 2050 and aligning them together. So under the long-range plan for mobility, we're looking at improving the economic growth and overall quality of the system, connected and accessible multimodal system. So the only change between the last plan is overall quality of life with a connected and accessible multimodal system, just enhancing the goals, but still under the same framework and emphasis areas as the goals were in the 2045. And this is what we're going to look to confirm with the board and the working group to make sure these are still the stepping stones for how we want to develop this plan over the next 18 months. Same as we're going through with the linking transportation, it wasn't any change that we're looking to propose within this one as the 2050 plan. And then same with as we're looking at sustainability, we thought the goals were very well established and really supported the overall long-range plan. We're still going to be working towards the objectives because as we're going to be working with the local government partners, we want to make sure that linkage and that connectivity to your comp plan, especially when it comes to affordable housing, transit-oriented development, and a lot of those emphasis areas that came out of the new infrastructure bill are included within both plans and are consistent with your local governments. So going into the transit development plan, this is a 10-year plan. Part of, I would say, the long-range plan as we're looking out to 2050. The transit development plan is that 10-year component looking to 2035. More condensed, more focused, two different organizations, similar goals, but different objectives. So we wanted to make sure, as we're doing these plans, how can we strategically align the goals as much as possible? As we're all talking about mobility within the Space Coast region, we kind of should have the same goals in mind, but they're not exactly the same. Because they, like I said, they're two different organizations trying to accomplish two different things, but still improve mobility in the future. So under that sense, what we wanted to do is just make sure to align these, not change the goals of the TDP, but where do they fit in underneath the long-range plan to make sure that we are all moving towards that goal of 2050. So the example I had was under safety. There were two safety goals in the TDP. One was to provide a safe and equitable transit system. The second was to create and maintain an accessible, efficient, effective multimodal transportation system. What we did is just modified the future goal in the long-range plan to accommodate what the TDP is trying to accomplish and also what the 2045 plan was trying to accomplish. That's how the alignment started working towards in this plan. Now again, this is just a preview of the goals and objectives. This is going to be the framework as we're starting to develop the plan. We want to confirm these, but they could still come back up later, especially under those objectives, to make sure we're accomplishing those goals that we're trying to establish here in this plan. So under the TDP, we're looking at 7 main goals. We want to provide a safe and equitable transit system. We want to create and maintain accessible, efficient, effective multimodal transit system. We want to promote economic growth, improve overall quality of life with a connected and accessible multimodal system. You hear a lot of common terms here. Deliver a flexible transit system to enhance mobility through fixed route, premium transit, and enhancing emerging technologies. We also want to improve the operational performance and the ridership while maximizing the potential funding opportunities. Deliver a sustainable and equitable, resilient transit system. And then there's something a little off from what the long-range plan has, because there's not a lot of marketing and public engagement, because the TPO already has a public engagement plan. But since this is part of the TDP, we have their goal of expanding those opportunities for public engagement, community outreach, and marketing strategies throughout the region. This way, it all supports both plans are really trying to go with the same direction, but like I said, two organizations, just a little different within the goals. We have some draft objectives underneath each one of these that came out of the TDP working group as we started trying to make sure that we had those objectives attached to each one of the goals. They're still in draft form. Like I said, we're going to be working with the local government partners to make sure these are really consistent with the comp plan, especially under the affordable housing and transit-oriented development that we're all starting to work towards in the future. But as I read through all the goals, here they are with the objectives, which we also have in your packets, which you were more than happy to look through. We'll be coming back again, and we can present these back in February after we go through a charrette with the local government partners. But the next steps, as we go through this is almost a 2-year process. We'll be looking to adopt the long-range plan in July of 2025, but looking to adopt the transit development plan in September of 24. Then we'll be working on, so after that transit development plan is adopted for 2035, That's where we can work with the long-range plan to look at those future transit ideas and visions, and how do we include that in the long-range plan that then could get looked at maybe in the next TDP for future transit options. So our next steps is December 7th, we're going to go to the working group, confirm these goals, refine the objectives a little bit more, and then present them to the board, and then come back in January where we'll really start working with the local government partners to identify those needs and objectives to help support that plan in 2050. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great, that was a very good report. Are there any questions, any comments for Mr. Lepp?
I have a question, Madam Chair. I'm not sure what the proper protocol is. Would it be okay if I ask a question?
This is for the board, but if you would like to make a comment during public,
She's an alternate.
Are alternates allowed to ask questions?
well, they're usually out there, but if we have public comment coming up, maybe you'd like to reference it then.
Actually, I guess, if you don't mind me asking, is it referring to the TDP?
Well, I wanted to ask a question about his presentation.
Well,
Open
it's-
for
it's-
questions.
Thank you.
Alternates, I thought I was allowed to ask. I guess I was just curious as to how you're defining safety, like what specifically are you looking at in terms of safety? Is it crime on transit, or is it the safety of the ridership itself? I'm just curious.
Actually, there's multiple criteria. So when we're talking about safety in terms of the long-range plan, and I'm sorry,
Can you repeat the question so we can all hear her
She
question?
was asking about safety. How do we define safety within the plan and with the objective? So right now, we have overall safety, yes, safe and secure transit system. So it's not just as safety for accidents. It is, even for transit itself, in their safety plan, it's slip and falls. Anything to improve the overall safety of the experience for that transit rider, that's what we'll be looking at in those objectives. And also, we'll have performance measures that match up to those, and also something that the transit department will have to look at through their transit safety action plan. So consistent with all of their safety that they're looking at, we'll be monitoring that through both plans and evaluating that in the future. For the long-range plan itself, it's looking at a lot of roadway safety, vulnerable user, as you're crossing the street, maybe standing there at the bus stop, looking at where there may be gaps in safety of access for crossing the street or sidewalks. So there's multiple components that we'll be looking at those performance measures to make sure we're improving those in the future.
Thank you. Any other comments? Thank you very much, Mr. Lepp. That was an excellent presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we're going to go to member reports. Opportunity for the members of the board to update any other members. All right, we'll start at the very end. Mr. Colon?
No comments.
None. None.
Just happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Estes. Mandy?
It's my first meeting, so none.
Thank you.
No comments.
Thank you very much. Joy Bartlett, right? Yes, Joy Bartlett, right. Thank you. I do not have a comment either. Arlene? Comment?
No.
Comment? No? All right, thank you. There are no board comments. Terry, did you want to say something?
Yes, ma'am. And of course, we're not a member, but two quick things. It is my hope that on subsequent meetings that we will have the opportunity for members to share information about the individuals and the groups that they serve. So it will give the opportunity for collaboration potentially, because I'm sure many of the members don't know who the other board members are and what purposes they serve. So I'm hopeful that in future meetings that we could have just a quick, not even a presentation, a quick discussion from each member group at subsequent meetings to talk about themselves. Maybe one or two members at each meeting going forward, if that's something the chair would entertain, and vice chair.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And are there any volunteers for the next meeting that would like to talk about their agencies or who they're advocating for? So Ms. Moore is serving.
I'm a citizen advocate, but I work for HFH Supportive Housing, so I also represent our local homeless population.
Thank you very much.
And I'll volunteer.
And Ms. Tate will volunteer. So Yvonne, please. Then we'll be glad to, if you'd like to send any presentations that we can present while you're presenting on the screen, we'll be glad to do so. Or if you just want to talk, we'll be glad to
Yes.
listen as well. So
Let's
thank you
put a
both for
time on that
volunteering.
for about 5 minutes.
Yeah, just about 5 minutes.
About
Thank you
5
very
minutes,
much.
yes. Okay?
And I also want to make an announcement. Many of you may not know, and several of you do know, Don McMurphy, who is with Space Coast Area Transit. Don, this is actually Don's last meeting and pretty much last week with Space Coast Area Transit. Don has served us for 9+ years in the agency and is retiring after those 9 years. And we definitely want to thank him for the service that he's provided to Space Coast Area Transit, but as well as the county residents. Don has done a great job. He has served as the operations manager for the Cocoa Terminal. Came up as an operator prior to that, so he has definitely done a great job with us at Space Coast, and I definitely want to recognize him for all the work, the hard work he's done and dealing with our operators on a day-to-day basis. So I just want to take the opportunity for the board to know that Mr. McMurphy is going to be retiring with us from serving us. Don, if you don't mind, stand up real quick. And thank you for your tenure, sir.
Thank you, Mr. McMurphy.
So beside Don is Ron Shepard, who currently serves as the operations manager for our Melbourne terminal, and Ron is going to be moving into our Cocoa location to take Don's position, and we're going to, staff is going to be interviewing within the next couple of weeks for Ron's replacement, who will likely introduce at our next LCB meeting.
Thank you. Thank you, and congratulations.
And that's my report.
Thank you very much, Terry. All right, let's move into public comment. I do have a public comment card. Each person is allowed 3 minutes to come and address the board, and I have a card from Peggy Campbell-Renzel.
I have recently made a choice to move to Melbourne. Prior to that, I researched the disabled transportation because it is the only transportation I have. I called Space Coast, filled out the applications, told me to read the reader's guide. I would know everything that was going on. I got a big surprise when I moved here. The reader's guide is not what's followed. I go to work Monday at Hope for Brevard, every Monday from 9 to 12. I spend every morning, Monday, from 8 a.m. to between 8:30 and 8:45 on hold to schedule for my next Monday's trip. That's if they can get me there at 9 o'clock and if they can pick me up at 12. Because sometimes it has to be earlier, sometimes it's later. It is not conducive. If the employer if they were not going to work with me, I wouldn't be able to go. Medical trips, I've had to wait 2 and 3 hours afterwards because you tell them I can be picked up at 2, but we don't have anything till 4. This is not, I'm at the point, I use everything I can to avoid it. I get to work, and my work knows, when they've heard about the transportation, they're all shocked. They're like, why can't you get here? Good question. I've used the services in Kentucky, in Indiana, and in Lutz, Florida, and I've never had issues like this. I've never spent hours. And when the phone system, if you go over 60 minutes on hold, automatically disconnects you. And then you have to call back for another, hopefully not 60 minutes, but I've had to do that 3 times. Where I was on hold 60 minutes, it hangs up. On hold 60 minutes, it hangs up. And you just continue to do that. But if you don't, you also have to call 6 days in advance. You can't call 3 days in advance, you can't call 4 days in advance, you can't call 5 days in advance, because you will not get a trip. On the 6th day, I call every Monday for the next Monday. And if you don't call like that, you do not get a trip at all. Even when you do call that, you don't necessarily get the trip you need. And that just does not seem to be servicing the disabled community. And I just wanted people to be aware.
Thank you, Ms. Rensel. We do have staff here, and I know staff has your contact info, and will contact you offline? Yes, thank you very, very much. Thank you. All right, thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to speak on a non-agenda item? If not, we're going to adjourn this, and we're going to reopen the public hearing. All right, we will adjourn this meeting. Meeting is adjourned, and we will open the public hearing. This is an annual event. We have one public hearing annually. Is that what you just told me, Terry? All right, thank you. So the public hearing is open. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to address anything regarding the transportation disadvantaged? All right, seeing none, we will adjourn the public hearing. Thank you very much. We are out of meeting. Thank you.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.